I don't think
you didn't think you were going to be getting dating advice.
The stress
today,
level of that
dating advice coming at you.
The stress level of that activity is such that it will crush you. Welcome to episode 2 of Coaches on Couches.
Working out the kinks. Working out the kinks.
You got to start somewhere. All right, so this week, a few shout-outs. We've got one of which, Philip Young, last week hit 4th overall at Mighty Might Triathlon.
Way to go, Philip.
Yep, had, I think, the 3rd fastest swim time. There was a couple of blazing fast swimmers. Philip is a phenomenal swimmer, 3rd fastest swim time, I think 2nd or 3rd fastest bike, and a solid finish overall leading into our road to nationals.
Yeah, he's having a great year, old Philip, especially considering he had an injury, April?
Yeah, in April he went over the bars and basically broke his wrist.
Yeah. So Philip, great job. Shout out on my end. It's a repeat. I got a repeat shout out.
Okay.
And online, actually. Lee Rustin once again brings home another jersey. So Cat 3 State Road Race Champion. She's been working super hard, putting in a lot of miles, a lot of training, and it's paying off. So Lee, we're proud of you. Great work, great result, and glad all that hard work is paying off for you.
Yeah, another shout out. We've had our 5th Snot, Sweat, and Tears time trial last night, and our buddy Richie Schlegel broke the course record, I believe, last night with a 20:21. That's over a 9.5 mile course. So do the math. That's fast.
That was fast. I had to heckle him a little bit though afterwards because he was giving me the typical endurance athlete.
Yeah.
How's your training been going?
I haven't been training much. I just can't train.
And then he comes and blows it out of the water. But Schlegel, great job, buddy. Great job.
Another shout out from the time trial is we had three different folks that came who have never done a time trial before. Darren Dandridge, Kevin Jackson, and Ted Homans. Awesome guys. Thanks for coming out, and we hope you enjoyed your first taste of the pain of the time trialing.
Yeah, great entry for new cyclists, people thinking about getting into racing.
Yeah.
We encourage you all to come to the last one, the final one, August 29th. There's a new Facebook page created for that.
Yep.
All you have to do is search Snot, Sweat, and Tears time trial, and it should pop up for you.
Yep.
Any other shout-outs? I think that's it for us.
All right, so today's topic is going to be the art of race selection.
Yes. So this is something like when we're dealing with athletes who maybe don't have a specific goal, or even athletes that come to us and say, hey, here's a race I want to do.
Yeah. Do
you think it's a race I can or I should do?
Yeah.
And essentially comes down to, what are your goals from this race?
Yeah, so this conversation is going to revolve around choosing races for in the sense of hitting PRs or having your best opportunity at a high placing.
Yep.
Not based on what vacation you want to go on after or something like that. So we're talking PRs and placings here.
Yeah, we're going to drill down into what's going to give you the best opportunity. What kind of course profile distance is going to give you the best opportunity to place the highest you can or possibly hit a PR that you've been chasing.
Yeah. So basically, the first point here is that you have to know your strengths and weaknesses.
Yes.
That is massive.
Huge.
So,
it's
huge. It's going to be huge. So know thyself. You have to know your strengths and weaknesses, and if you're theoretically weak at hills, you probably don't want to pick a race with a bunch of climbing.
Exactly.
If you're a terribly weak swimmer, you probably don't want to pick a race that typically has choppy water
or maybe a swim longer than what a typical sprint distance
Sure.
for someone doing a sprint distance
might
do.
That's why why we see a lot of people gravitate toward half and full Ironmans with downriver swims.
Yep.
Because
Augusta is typically a huge first time event.
Yep.
Chattanooga as well.
Yeah.
You got that downriver swim, so it's going to be easier on you. You're going to be spending less time on your weakest leg.
So those are generally, reasons why you would pick an event. So if you know you're weak at something, you have a limiter, you generally avoid those that type of terrain or conditions based on knowing yourself. So, on the strength side of things, if you're a higher absolute power athlete, maybe a little bit heavier, so you don't do well on long climbs, it's likely that flat to rolling course is going to suit you better if it's a bike or triathlon race.
We got some more people that have joined up. My wife's joining on.
Oh.
Hi, wifey.
Well, hey, fun.
Told you I am working. This is kind of work.
This is work. This is totally work. So, big point number 1 is knowing your strengths and weaknesses.
Yep.
Take a self-assessment. Know what your big limiters are. You don't have to pick away yourself. But
so how would you encourage a person to go about doing that? So
well,
say you got a triathlete. So
yeah,
you're dealing with an athlete. Let's kind of just drill down into it a little bit more. So you got an athlete. They're wanting to do, triathlon. What sort of stuff are you going to do with them to kind of determine what course would be best for them?
First thing would be, what is your weakest leg? So not just picking up very specific limiters, but the broad spectrum limiter, which is what is your weakest leg. So if your weakest leg is swim, then we probably are going to gravitate toward those downriver or easier swims. And it may just be easier as in the sense of short swim, or it may be a sense of there's always calm water or downriver or something like that. If their weakness is the bike, then we generally don't go toward very difficult or technical bike courses, in a sense of difficulty being long climbs, or technical. That can mean like technical descents or having a ton of turns. So sometimes the courses can end up really tight, and you have a ton of turns.
Bike handling becomes more
right. Or if there's a chance that historically the bike course is they get rain on the bike, then we kind of go away from those types of bike courses. If the weakness is the run, it's kind of similar to the bike. We stay away from the more difficult. We kind of stick to more flatter runs or something that's got a little bit of rolling to it, but nothing with really long climbs.
Yeah.
Rollers are fine. Anything that's going to make you climb more than a few minutes, generally we'll stay away from those if running really is your weakness.
Now, if you don't even know what your weakness is, so maybe you're just getting into this, if you've never swam before, it'd probably be safe to assume that swimming is going to be your weakest thing.
Yeah.
We encourage people to get out on group rides. If you've never, if you're doing a triathlon, for example, and you've never been on a group ride, get on a group ride, and you'll find out pretty quick sort of where you stack up relative to other people, where you may lose the group, where you may hold in there just fine. If you're losing people on the hills, odds are a hilly course would not be as good for you.
Yeah.
And same thing with the run. You can go and sort of compare yourself and test yourself against others and kind of see how you do. Or even go out and you can look at previous results from races and see what sort of splits people were putting down the previous year to kind of get a feel for your own stuff. If they're holding 9-minute miles and you're currently running at 12-minute miles, that can
got some work to do.
Yeah, give you a feel that you got some work to do there.
Yeah, and it's the same. It same goes for your strength. So if you're a super strong swimmer, like a downriver swim kind of negates your strength.
Yeah.
So I would recommend kind of avoiding those. It's one thing if other factors push you to that race, but if we're talking about PRs and placings, then you want to go away from the courses that are going to negate your strength. So if you're a really good climber on the bike, you want to go toward those courses that have long climbs, so that you can utilize your strengths as much as possible. And the people who aren't as strong climbers, who might be better swimmers or runners than you, they suffer a little bit more, and it takes it out of them a little bit more. So,
yeah, like right now, Tour de France is sort of a perfect example. Is the hilly,
don't choose
uphill
Tour de France
finish
as your
courses. That totally demolishes the guys who are super fast sprinters. If they were choosing a one-day race, they would not be choosing a course that has these big, long climbs in it, or any course that finishes on a climb, because that is not going to play to their strength. There's really no chance that they have of winning that.
Yeah.
So, like for me personally, I'm not the smallest human around.
No,
I weigh around that. When I'm fit and lean, I'm kind of in that 185 range. I was injured. I'm not quite as fit or lean as I was.
When you're not coming out of the bedridden stage.
Yeah, the couch is fitting right now. That's where I've spent most of my time. But I'm not going to go pick River Gorge, which is a race over in Chattanooga that finishes on a 3-mile climb that averages like 8%. That's not a course for me to pick as like me to get my best result I can.
Right.
I'm going to pick something. My personal strength is short burst stuff where I'm having to push high power for a short period of time. Then there's recoveries, accelerations, recoveries. So technical crits I do pretty well. Rolling courses that don't have super long climbs on them I tend to do pretty well. And then for me, even more personally, I know if it's a big group sprint, that's not going to benefit me. So I want a course that's hard enough that you get rid of the true sprinters, but not so hard that a climb is going to get me shelled. So that's what I'm doing, is breaking down my strengths, my weaknesses, and then trying to choose courses or races that I'm really going to try to prioritize because I know what those strengths and weaknesses are.
And that pretty much just goes hand in hand with our second point, so we won't spend a ton of time on it, but is knowing the course.
Yeah.
So know the distance you're getting into.
Yeah.
Know the terrain that you're getting into.
Exactly.
And see if that meshes with your strengths and weaknesses. And then, the other thing with knowing the course is, knowing the technical aspects of the course. So if there are a lot of turns, or if there's if you're racing criteriums, if there's a 180 in it and that you're not really good at those, or whatever, just know the technical aspects of the course and cross-reference your strengths and weaknesses, and then just pick along those lines.
Yep.
So point 3 would be knowing the conditions. So you can have a course that suits you to the T on your strengths or weaknesses, but you pick a race that's crazy hot or crazy cold, or always has ends up getting rain or something like that, where you're just picking a race that just doesn't suit conditions that are ideal for you to PR. So, we get to train in the heat a lot, in the humidity. So we tend not to shy away from those types of races unless the athlete has a history of melting down in the heat.
I don't know anyone on this couch that melts down in the heat.
Not anymore. Yeah. So personally, I still choose goal races based off of the temperature more than a lot of things. Most of my better races have either been late in the fall or early spring or north. Go north where it's cooler. So know the conditions. Does the swim get canceled every other year because of either wind, rain, or both?
Because that used to be New Orleans, right? New Orleans half used to always...
It's been canceled at Ironman Florida. It's been canceled at several races,
So if you're a strong swimmer and they're canceling the swim, and now your two weaker events are the only two that you're essentially competing in, that's a bad situation for you.
Pick a different race. So...
Unless you just love New Orleans.
Yeah.
Which is not a bad thing.
It's not.
We kind of get to that. We get to that later. We get to that one later.
Don't consider the beignets in your in your choices here. So knowing the conditions, again, it's the same thing if in triathlon. It's the same thing for every leg. So, there are races out there that on the run, it's like you might have to go off road some, or you might have to go through run in the sand. Races like Escaped Alcatraz, stuff, you get to run in the sand, or you run up the sand ladder, and that's some of the conditions, part of the conditions, but also part of knowing the course. So just know the conditions, know the course, know your strengths and weaknesses. Diving into the more stalker level stuff. Know your competition. Know who's going to be there. It's a little bit harder in some sports where nobody signs up till the day before, anyways. But generally in triathlon, they found a way to get you to sign up early. So you generally know how many people are going to be in your age group, or how many people are going to be there overall that are highly competitive. If it's in an area where you know someone who's highly competitive there, so just do some.
This becomes really big for like someone trying to Kona qualify. So if you get to a level where you're trying to qualify for Kona, and what's required of that, and you have to place at a certain percent of your age group, and that's your goal, then you aren't going to want to pick the race that's stacked with all the elite folks. That's kind of the the huge race of the year. You wouldn't want to pick that to be a qualifying event for you.
In that respect, if you're thinking about, if you just drill it down to just Kona itself, most people will gravitate toward those faster courses to try to qualify. So the competition level on faster courses is generally a lot higher. So if you're thinking about trying to qualify for Kona, most of the time your best bet is to either go to one of the courses that's a lot more difficult, or go international. Some of the international Ironman races are just not as attended and have smaller fields, and they're just a little bit easier to qualify just based on the numbers. But you always have to consider that smaller fields also mean less number of qualifying spots. So, that's kind of thing. If you're specifically trying to qualify for Kona, there's a few more things you have to consider as far as how many spots are actually given in your age group for that race. So,
any questions so far? I know we got a few folks online right now. If you have any questions over anything we've covered so far, feel free to throw them up there. We want this to be interactive, and not just us talking at the screen.
Jibba jabba.
Not just the jibba jabba. So if you have questions, feel free to shoot them to us. I guess one thing that kind of summarizes, knowing the competition, which was that point. One thing I guess, maybe we touched on a little bit, but maybe we should expand a little more. Like picking the distance you should be doing. So you just sort of mentioned picking a harder course, that may be less attended, but like how can you determine strengths and weaknesses and use that to your advantage, as far as what course distance you should go. So for triathletes, should you be doing a sprint or should you be going for an Ironman? If you're where is the sweet spot? Or a cyclist, should you be training for criteriums, time trials, or should you be more of a long distance road race kind of person? Or for a runner, should it be marathons or should you be going for 5Ks? So those are all maybe something we should touch on a little bit, but knowing your strengths and weaknesses in those areas, when you fade, when you don't. So like I'll touch on cycling just briefly since I deal with a lot of cyclists. For a criterium racer, the demands are a lot different than someone who's doing a time trial. So in a criterium, generally a lot of turns, lots of hard accelerations followed by recoveries, high speeds, but it's a very short punch, recover, short punch, recover. Some people do well with that. Other people don't do well with that at all. So that's where kind of knowing your strengths and weaknesses are. If you're someone that can, get it up to a certain speed and then just hold it, and you can hold it for, 5, 10, 20 miles, and you don't see your speed fall off that much, you're more of like this diesel engine kind of person. You're someone that's probably going to do better at time trials or less explosive road race courses. If you're someone that's got just all the endurance in the world, you feel just as good at hour 3 as you do at hour 0.5, 30 minutes in, road racing may be something that's more advantageous to you. So, and if you've got a power meter, that's where we really dive into it. We start looking at where your fall off in power occurs. At what timetables do you have the fall offs and the level offs? So, like a strength for me, I have a pretty good 1 minute to 20 seconds. I don't have a really great sprint, but kind of 20 seconds to 1 minute, I'm pretty strong. And then I'm pretty good, around the 5 minute mark to the 10 minute mark. Those are kind of my stronger suits relative to other people. So I'm picking stuff that allows me to take advantage of that.
Yeah. I think what part of what it comes down to, one is your chronological time in the sport. So how long have you been in the sport? What kind of a aerobic base do you have built up? Do you have years and years of running, riding, swimming, competitive experience? The more competitive experience you have, generally the better you're going to kind of you'll handle the longer duration stuff. It doesn't mean you'll excel at it, but you generally can better handle it. And obviously if it's your first time doing a specific distance, then for 99% of the people out there, we're not going to worry about a PR or a placing. Well, it will be a PR, but
just showing up's your PR.
But you don't really worry about placing because you're going above and beyond what you're used to.
Yeah.
There's always going to be some unknowns that can come into play. So like Brian said, if it's part of knowing his strengths and weaknesses, what durations and distances suit him best. A lot of that also has a lot to do with your available training time. So if you're
that's
one of
a big one we see. Like if you're someone with a full-time job and 4 kids.
Yeah. If you have, if you're have the time to do it and you can fit it in, then you can probably excel at long course.
Yeah.
But if you're short on time or, constantly missing sessions or not doing quite as much as you wanted to do, then, you can still, finish long course races and even maybe like in a bike race contribute to the pace in that race.
Yeah.
But
or finich that century,
But the idea of finishing strong and having it at the end is probably not going to be the case because you just don't have the time to put in the aerobic base and the strength work and everything else that it's going to take for you to sustain an effort for hours and hours and hours and hours.
Yeah.
So,
and when in doubt, we always push people towards doing the shorter stuff first. When you do the shorter stuff, you build speed, and then it makes it a lot easier, and it requires less training time to do the longer stuff because you're covering more miles in a shorter period of time.
Yeah, if you don't have
so get fast first. If you're not sure or you're new to a sport, try to gravitate towards the shorter stuff.
Yeah, if you don't have your mind made up already that you're going to do a half or full Ironman or, whatever, we always recommend in the early stages of your racing career that you focus on the short stuff because then you develop all the speed skills and stuff like that is going to transfer well over to the long, slow duration work.
Yeah.
If you don't learn those things on the front end, they don't transition, and you just stay slow. So,
exactly.
Work the speed on the front end.
All right.
A little off topic.
We're at minute 26 right now, so I guess we're trying to keep these to about 30 minutes. Yeah. So we'll move on.
One of the last thing is this is kind of the trump card sometimes is knowing the stresses and anxieties of the logistics of the race and the travel. So,
so you may have found the perfect event.
Yep.
It's got the right elevation profile, great temperature conditions, and then you find out it's 28 hours of travel to get there.
or in the case, in a lot of people's cases, you've got to find a place to stay that's big enough for your whole family. So you're taking now 4 people or however many people are in your family instead of you being able to drive to it in a day and doing the race and coming home. Or you have to fly, then you got to worry about the bike or whatever your stuff getting there. Sometimes the race venues are hours away from any nearest airport, so now you got to have a car. Sometimes the logistics of the travel just don't add up and don't make sense for you to go and attempt to do this race, because you're going to be so stressed out by the time that you get to the start line that you're going to be worthless. You're just going to underperform because it doesn't matter the conditions, the course, and the competition, but you're just going to underdo it because that stress of everything else has already taken a massive chunk out of your available training stress for the day. So consider those things kind of once you've found that perfect race for you.
Yeah, because stress and lack of sleep can definitely impact performance. Those are 2 things that they can really derail you and lead to illness, which is another thing that
Pro tip. And there's 2 people I'm talking directly to, and they'll know who I'm talking to. And this is no hit on your method of proposal, but probably not the best
method of proposal.
Probably not the best idea to propose to your girlfriend the day of a goal race, where you're trying to do your best, perform your best. I don't think
you didn't think you were going to be getting dating advice.
The stress
today,
level of that
dating advice coming at you.
The stress level of that activity is such that it will crush you for the actual race itself.
Yeah, you'll have too many nerves about that versus putting the nerves to that positive energy.
You will not be thinking of the race at all.
No.
Which is fine. If you want to do that, totally cool. Just don't try to do that on a race that you're actually trying to have a really high placing or PR.
Yeah.
I'm not dogging any... Look, don't get me wrong. I'm not dogging
Dale's
anybody.
going to get hate mail. I hope Dale gets hate mail. Send your hate mail to Dale.
Yeah, whatever. So, look, if you want to do it, that's fine. I have no problem with it. I'm just saying it's going to affect your performance. So
it will, for sure.
Just think twice before you choose to do that.
Exactly.
I'll still stand there and clap. I will.
All right, last thing. So we talked about kind of picking an event that's best for you, best suits your strengths, and doesn't magnify your weaknesses. So you kind of know your strengths and weaknesses is a very important thing. So at the end of the day, you need to pick something that excites you. So you may find the perfect race, but if it's not something that gets you excited to get out there and train on those days you're not motivated to, which we all have. Like, I have days I don't want to go train. I do it because my goals outweigh my desire to sit on the couch that day. But finding something that excites you, either a lofty goal, a race that may be in a really cool... We've had athletes who, they just get excited about doing a race in a cool location or a more prestigious race. That's something that gets them excited. Maybe a distance. We talked about, if you're not sure, we recommend you getting fast first. But it may be, accomplishing a distance that you never thought you could will get you to put in the work on the days that you don't want to, because you can't fake your way through it. So you need to find something that excites you, that gets you up on the days you don't want to get out there. And so at the end of the day, that's kind of an important thing.
Especially for triathletes who, you're doing 2-a-days. Almost every day, or almost every training day. So one of those is usually got to be pretty early in the morning. So, like Brian said, if the event you've chosen is an event you chose to PR because of the course or because of the distance, and that you can PR it, but it's not like really exciting you, then you're gonna let your motivation sway, and so. Ideally, pick a race that's super motivating for you to keep doing the early mornings and the late evenings, and going and doing the lunch workouts and then eating your lunch in the car on the way back to the office, or stuff like that. So that's that's massive right there. When you're picking a race. The last thing we'll leave you with is when you're doing all this, don't be afraid to get outside your comfort zone when you're picking races. Don't be afraid to try something new, even if it doesn't suit you, because you may not even know what suits you.
Exactly.
You don't know what you don't know.
Yep.
So
and you can use races for training too. So I use the races that don't suit me, knowing they're going to be a super hard training day. I'm going to help my team as much as I can, and I know at the end of the day I'm going to get a really great training day on the things that maybe I wouldn't do quite as much on my own. We all love to train to our strengths because it makes us feel all warm and fuzzy. It's training your weaknesses that really help you accelerate your growth and performance as an athlete. So choosing races that make you do that can be a really good thing too. Cool.
All right.
Coaches on Couches.
Bam.
Out.